What's up YouTube? So today I actually just saw this movie, Man of Steel, that is yet to be released. I think it's being released tomorrow. It's a Superman movie, and the reason why I saw it in advance was because I got to go to an advance screening for it. So I'll probably talk about why I got into that in another vlog, but what I want to talk to you guys today is pretty much a review on the movie. And don't worry, there will be no spoilers. I don't even think I'll be talking too much about the story. Maybe towards the end I might spoil a little bit, but I'll give you the spoiler alert. So if you want to just cut it there, you can. Otherwise you can watch it and figure out what I didn't like about the movie. Yeah, we went into this advanced screening. It was pretty cool. People were dressed up and everything. And it was really top secret. Like, they had like 6 security guards to make sure we didn't bring in any recording devices. And they had like flashlights. And we were strip searched. It's like, no, we weren't strip searched. But we were searched pretty hard. And it was pretty cool. I really liked the movie in some aspects. And first off, the one thing I really liked was the 3D special effects. This is one of those videos or movies where they actually take the time to put in special effects, and I saw it in 3D, so I saw the whole movie, and I have to say, like, throughout the whole movie, they did a really good job spacing 3D effects throughout. I really thought they did a really good job spacing all of it out, so there wasn't like in most movies where you might see a couple 3D effects like at the beginning, and then it's almost like they completely forgot the movie was 3D until like the end, where they remembered again, and then they threw in like some random 3D thing that didn't even make sense but was just there so that people can say, oh, it's 3D. Like, I remember one movie, it was like Spy Kids 3D Game Over, I watched when I was in 6th grade. Basically, they didn't have any 3D effects, and then all of a sudden, sporadically, in the middle of the movie, this random yellow like energy boost icon thing just popped out of the screen at us. And we're like, really? That was completely pointless. You didn't need to do that. You obviously only added it because you totally forgot the movie was 3D. But for Man of Steel, I really think that there was definitely a very, very good amount of 3D throughout the movie. It was very, very evenly spaced, so like every 5 minutes there was a really good selection. And yeah, I really enjoyed that. Another thing was, the movie's long. It was like 2 hours long, and a lot of it was fight sequences. Most of the fight sequences were really just CGI effects that were very well done and very detailed. They showed huge, like most of the fights were either in big towns or big cities, and therefore they had to create the whole scene, and you can see tons of straight up destruction everywhere. And so it was a lot of that. Another thing I want to talk about is the acting. I definitely believe some of the acting was mediocre, but absolutely, for sure, Michael Shannon, I think that's his name, who plays Zod, who is the evil villain of the movie. That's not a spoiler. You can look it up on Wikipedia. It's just like a typical cast info thing, but he did an exceptional job playing General Zod. You can tell like when an actor takes the role seriously. I can tell some actors, they will just, if they were given this role, they would just think, oh, it's just another cartoony superhero Superman movie, so I'm just going to lackadaisically, play the somewhat cheesy cartoon villain character. But Michael Shannon did not do this. I don't think it's his way of acting to do something like this, and it really, really showed in the movie because he was very, very, very serious about the entire role, and he took it really seriously to the point where you really thought that this guy really, I don't want to spoil anything, but semi-spoiler alert, semi-spoiler alert. Close it now if you don't want to see it. But you really thought this guy was very anguished that his whole planet was destroyed and he had come to save his entire species race. He was just a great actor throughout the movie. There were just some dialogue scenes by him where it was just completely amazing. It was almost as if this wasn't some superhero movie, more like it was a dialogue from something like Game of Thrones or something more realistic that's actually from Earth, because he just brought that emotion with it. You kind of have to see it. He has a ton of dialogues throughout the entire movie, so you can spot it real quick, but he pretty much puts it on the table. He's screaming, he has this horribly wicked, villainous face, and half the time he's screaming with like anguish, and he's just super into his role. Other actors in the movie, they did a good job, but for them compared to Michael Shannon, there was definitely a huge gap in performance. I don't think they were trying to pull off some cartoony, cheesy vibe, but it wasn't really realistic. There were definitely some dialogues throughout the movie where it just seemed too cheesy, like that would never happen in real life. Anyhow, let's move on to the actual plot of the story. So I will tell you, this might be another spoiler alert, so turn it off now if you don't want to get spoiled. So basically, there's a lot of plot sequences in the movie that just wouldn't make sense realistically. I'm one of those movie watchers who can't really take a movie seriously if there's very huge and very visible logical gaps. And I know some people will be against that. They'll be like, can you just shut up and enjoy the movie? Well, the reason why I'm so realistic about it and, you know, some semi-anal about it is because you don't have to make it like that. You can still make the movie very good and then just remove these illogical sequences in the plot. And there's some movies that do a very good job of this and they still keep the story intact. Inception is one of them. I had really no big critical things to say about it because I couldn't really see anything that was completely wrong with it. And that's saying something, because most of the time when I finish a movie, it's like, that didn't really make sense there. Anyhow, with this movie, the first point would be at the very beginning. I'm not going to spoil it, but I'll give you a semi-spoiler just to tell you what's going on. So I'm kind of spoiling it, but not too much. So basically, the villain is Zod, who comes from Krypton. He somehow survives Krypton's explosion, and that's why he's come back to save his race. And so a lot of the movie is backstory. So you will see tons of flashbacks to different ages of Superman in his childhood, as well as a huge backstory at the very beginning, which lasts about 20 to 30 minutes upon the actual planet Krypton. The one thing I really didn't understand was the whole sequence where they're wasting so much time on Krypton doing stupid stuff, and it's very clear that you could at least escape the planet, and yet they're wasting their time doing all this stupid stuff when it's clear the planet's going to explode in under an hour. In the first 30 minutes of backstory at the beginning, it's just completely illogical. They could have just, if they had actually thought more about it, they could have just changed the plot around slightly and there wouldn't be so many illogical things, but they didn't. Let me give you an example. So the planet's about to explode and everyone's going to die on it. They capture Zod because he decides to do this coup and overtake the planet. And they spend the whole hour trying to capture Zod, and when they finally do, they use their last resources to send him to a black hole with his crew, so they are imprisoned in the black hole. Why waste your time with something like that when the planet's about to explode anyways? Why don't you use that ship to get off the planet and save yourself, and use that to find a potential secondary hospitable planet? Instead, they use all their resources to chase down Zod. Then they imprison Zod and all his crew in this like ice capsule, and then use their last resources in what seems like their last spaceship to send him to a black hole. And later on in the movie, it's very clear that none of this stuff will work once the planet explodes anyways. So what they're pretty much doing is freeing Zod and letting the criminal escape from the planet while they themselves die. Why couldn't they have just caught Zod, froze him in a capsule, left him on a planet to get exploded, then used these space shuttles, which I saw thousands of at the beginning of the movie, to leave the planet? And if they're actually smart, which they should be because they are apparently 100,000 years old, then they should have done what Zod did to survive. They could have taken their last resources and made a hyperdrive, traveled to the other outposts, and found another planet. I can keep rambling on about all these other logical things they could have done, but I'll just give you one more. Superman's mother, somehow, in the matter of seconds, just goes on her futuristic computer and finds a habitable planet which they decide to send their son. If it's that easy to find a habitable planet, why is everyone on the planet just sitting there waiting to die, even the high council members? It's shown later in the film that they clearly have the technology to travel to other planets and then take over those planets. Why couldn't they have just done that? Because it's very easy to find a habitable planet. Instead, what they did was they all died, and Superman's mother found a habitable planet and shot her son up there. At least in terms of just the movie, it wasn't explained why any of them, especially Superman's parents, couldn't just leave with their son. It was just said, we couldn't do it. We're sorry. Even if we wanted to, we couldn't do it. It wasn't explained why. Was it because there's no resources left? I saw plenty of space shuttles there, and plenty of space shuttles being launched, and Superman's parents lived in a house where I saw plenty of space shuttles circling around that worked and he used. And I know I said that was the last thing I was going to ramble on in terms of plot holes, but I just gotta give you one more just to show how many there are. And this is just one more over the dozen I have in my mind. Okay, so another spoiler alert. They had this freaking codex thing, which pretty much has the genetic code for all possible types of Kryptonians after 100,000 years of evolution. And pretty much all Superman's father had to do to steal this codex, which seemed to be coded into this ancient ape's skull, was fly his space shuttle to the codex center, jump into this pool, swim down, then swim under the wall, come back up, and then when he emerges from the lake, the codex is just hovering above him, and there's all these like machines up above. So all he has to do is grab it and then swim back down and then jump on his freaking space shuttle, and then he just escapes with the codex. Isn't that retarded? You've been alive for 100,000 years as a species, and yet you couldn't have figured out some better security system than this moat with no dangerous animals in it. And all you had to do to steal this item was swim down and then grab it? It's even more outrageous because in the movie it was said to be a Class B crime, which is only one step from Class A, which means it is like the second-degree crime to steal this codex. And yet with 100,000 years of technology, they couldn't have found a better way of guarding it. It's even more preposterous because 2 times later in the movie, it's shown that they have very advanced security technology, and yet at the beginning he surpasses it because there's no security technology. But I'm going to leave it for that for the plot holes, because I'm sure there's even more intense Superman fans who have found a lot more plot holes in the movie. Other than that, I really liked the flashbacks in the movie. Basically, it starts with the adult Superman and occasionally flashes back to childhood events which had taught him certain virtues. I really felt they were very well done, and they were very heart-touching at times. The only flashback I didn't like was the one where Superman's Earth father dies. It wasn't really clear why Superman couldn't help him, and the reason it gave was, it seemed to be that because his Earth father didn't want him to help him because he didn't think the world was ready for Superman yet, which I think is just really dumb. He could have just saved his father from the tornado, spoiler alert, and it would have been good. I guess that makes sense, but there's so many different reactions a child could have from that. They could be anguished or terrified or frustrated about it. But I'm not completely bashing the movie. There was a lot of really good parts. I really like a lot of the heartfelt parts, and they really touched me, such as when his father saw him as a child and he was wearing a red cape, because it showed how his father knew what he was potentially able to become in the future, even though he died very young. I do have to say though, a lot of the movie was just too much crashing and destruction. It wasn't even fight sequences, it was just buildings being completely destroyed using CGI animations and stuff like that. And they cranked the volume at their movie theaters so freaking loud that it was almost like a football stadium. In fact, I would have to say at least 25% of the movie was just straight up CGI effects of buildings being destroyed, and very well placed advertisements where the building had Sears on it, and it was very clear that they were paid to put this stuff in because the shot on Sears lasted for like 5 seconds before the building got destroyed. As for the actual fight sequences, I really liked them. I thought they were very well done. The costumes, everything was very well done. Finally, there were a couple things that didn't very well transition well. One of those things was the Lois Lane kiss. I just thought it could have been done better because the amount of interactions between them and the actual moment of the kiss didn't really make sense because they had just met, they had talked semi-briefly, they'd done a lot together though, and then all of a sudden, when it was all done, they just very quickly just kissed, and it didn't seem normal, but overall I really liked the movie. I really liked the actor who played Superman. I thought he did a good job as well. Lois Lane, Amy Adams, she did a very good job as well. Morpheus as the editor-in-chief of Daily Planet, very good job as well. I really thought he took the role seriously as well. I definitely think the actor who played Superman was definitely the best one cast. He definitely played everything very well. He wasn't too cocky, and I would say he could have been slightly more humble at times. But it was very well done. The problem is just simply that the plot could have been done better. There were some things that were out of control of the actors that weren't pristine. So overall, I really liked the movie, so I would give it a solid B, which is a good rating. Oh, and another thing, I didn't like the part where Superman got picked on at the bar, but rather than fighting back because he knew he didn't want to physically attack the person because he was stronger, he decided to trash that guy's car. I thought that was kind of unnecessary. Anyways, if you like this video, hit the subscribe button. See you guys later.